Welcome back to You Don't Know Her, the Mindset podcast all about creating the best life for yourself, one by design, not by default. And for the third time, we're joined with the incredibly talented singer-songwriter artist, Jack Critchlow. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. So I'll just probably continue from where we left off, I think, because we just sort of got into the world of what dominated UK media and the landscape for everything, probably from even the 90s up until fairly recently, is the whole idea of, X Factor and Pop Idol and everything like that, and kind of all the amazing talent that's come from it. And just kind of wanted to explore into some of the successes of those sort of things. So we spoke last time about kind of One Direction and everything they achieved, but beyond that, we've had successes like Ollie Murs and things like that. Are there any artists that have been on that show that you've thought that maybe you still listen to now, you follow it, and you've been exposed to via that medium?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny if you look at One Direction where they are now. I mean, I really like Harry Styles. I think when he came out with his solo music, I think he's really cool, and he's really honed into being an artist. And I just find it, as I said before, it's just crazy to think that the capability of those shows is that, they've made, you look at One Direction, they're like the most successful band of all time. And, even on their own, Harry Styles, Niall, and like all of them really, that they built such a massive following as a band, but also as artists themselves. And it's the same with, everyone loves a bit of Ollie Murs every now and again, and Little Mix and James Arthur. I really like James Arthur as well.
Yeah.
I think he's really, his last album, I think it's Bittersweet Love, it's called.
Okay.
I listened to it, and he's got a great voice. I'm trying to think who else is. There's loads of people who've come. Ella Henderson's one. I met Ella Henderson actually a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And I'm sure there's a few others here. Oh, Louisa Johnson I also met as well.
Really?
She's got an amazing voice. So I met her at the London Palladium. We were doing this songwriting thing. She was lovely. But yeah, it's crazy how it became. It was Simon Cowell's marketing tool that he used to, test out who was going to do well in the public eye and essentially get his new signings from it. But I just find it crazy, especially the One Direction have just how they've gone from being your sugar-coated pop band that the industry created them to be the artists that they are. And as I say, I think Harry Styles' most recent album and a lot of his other albums are really, really good and really strong and are really good albums. If he hadn't have been on X Factor, then as an artist himself, he's done really well. So yeah.
Agreed. I think with One Direction and everything, I was listening to Simon Cowell in an interview say how his biggest regret about his X Factor and about One Direction was
not keeping the name.
He didn't keep the name. He said he could have kept the name and maybe even made them holograms or something, or done something to just market and make so much money from it, because he felt at the time, it was obviously the time of the interview was before Liam Payne's passing away, sadly. But he said even then he couldn't see a way that they're going to come back togetger, really.
It was mad to think about One Direction, like them coming back together, because they'd all become so big on their own. But I mean, they all spoke about it in interviews and said that it would have happened. And it's obviously really tragic that it will never happen now. Whether it happened as a four, I don't know. I think it would be quite difficult for the four of them to come back together without or knowing that Liam's passed away and that he wouldn't be there. But I did find that interesting to hear Simon Cowell talking about it all, because I think Simon Cowell's come out in not the best light from it. I think I don't really know the ins and outs of what went down. I think it was very clear that, as I've said before, they were being curated to be the band that they want, as in the people around them, the label wanted them to be. They would say, kind of said, wear this, sing this, and do, and kind of shut up really. And I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but yeah, it was interesting to hear kind of Simon Cowell's take on it all, and say how he wished he kept the name. But
well, but he said he learned from that, and then I think he did his own X Factor bands thing where he tried to put a band together.
I almost did that actually.
Did you?
One of their people who scout people sent me a DM, and it didn't work out in the end.
Oh.
I'm not sure. Has it come out, that show?
I think I never watched it, but I think I did think it
I never ended up doing an audition. I can't remember why. I think the conversation just fizzled out, but I don't know if it's going to be coming out soon. But as I said before, I'm not sure how much space there is for those kind of shows anymore, which is my hesitation to do it a bit. Not that I thought I was better than it at all, or that it was below me, but it just kind of, I think that kind of very manufactured, curated way of making a group of people is kind of died out a bit. And I think what made One Direction such a success is that it was very last minute. They got put together, but it was no way kind of, okay, let's go around the country and find 5 of the best people to put together and let's just put them in the public eye. And Simon Cowell's got that platform that they will get exposure, I'm sure, but I'm not sure how much the public buys into that anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
guess we'll see when it happens.
Because when was it? Was it like 2010 or something that One Direction?
I think so.
About that
2010.
round about
Something
there,
like
wasn't
that,
it?
yeah.
It was very somewhere around there. But I think the time you've got to think that social media was just about like really getting into its stride about that sort of time. So now where we're at in 2024, you just think that if you're a good singer or whatever, you're going to reach out to other singers.
Yeah.
If you want to do that yourself, you can kind of try and collaborate with people yourself, use different platforms. So that's possibly the reason why you're having fewer of these bands that can be manufactured that way, unless they actually people go, unless they're so drawn to Simon Cowell or the X Factor as the title, as a name that they're interested. But otherwise, there's just so much talent available.
And also it's kind of what we've touched on previously is the public have a lot more control now, I think, over the music that they want to listen to. Look back 20 years or to the time of One Direction or a bit before then, when social media didn't exist. You were kind of the public were given what they were going to listen to, and as I said before, they used to have no choice. And whereas nowadays, with the likes of TikTok and social media, and you can access everything on your phone now, you've got a lot more choice of what you want to listen to, and no amount of money can force someone to like someone's music or to like them as an artist. You can throw all this money at something, but you can just scroll past it now. You can just skip it now. It's just that music is so much more disposable. That even if you've got Simon Cowell's backing, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a success. And I'm sure there's plenty of examples of artists at major labels who've had big advances and money thrown at them, and you can't force someone to like your music. And there's not that commitment to listening to music anymore. There's not going out and buying a vinyl and listening to the whole album because you had to, because that was all you could afford, or you bought the album so you would listen to it all. You don't do that anymore. You go on your phone, you listen to music. If you like it, you listen to it. If you don't like it, you skip it. Simple as that. Which means music's so disposable. And TikTok, if you want to watch it, you can. If you don't, everyone's constantly saying you need to get someone in the first 3 seconds with TikTok videos, whether it's music or whether it's your any other video. You've got to get their attention so quickly. And it's the same with music. And we go back to what we talked about and falling into that trap and making music for TikTok. But it's true is that, you've got to get people's attention so quickly, because if you don't, then they'll be on to the next. They'll be on to the next person who does do that. So it's a really difficult thing to navigate. And as I say, no amount of money can help. It can help advertisement and market and pay for good content videos and all this stuff, but you can't pay someone to like your music. It just doesn't work like that.
It's a very personal thing. It's personal to everyone. One person's favourite song could be someone.
Having said that, I reckon if you gave everyone £1 to listen to your music, you probably could pay them to like your music.
I think they'd come on. £1 per play as well. £1 per player. I was gonna say there's obviously Paul Burnham's a big hero of mine in the music world, and he did a show on TV in around about 2009 or something, and called Zach Stone is Going to Be Famous. It was a TV show, and he was playing the title character, and the idea of the show was he was a young musician who wanted to kind of break into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And on that show, part of what they did was he created something called a micro song. So he just plays it, and it's about 5 seconds long, and he goes, "That's it, that's the song." He's like,
Right.
and he just press play, and like, "Well, where's the rest of it?" He's like, "There is no rest of it. That's the song." And it's like, but then after that, he then became quite famous on Vine at the time, which is like probably what, like, and then Vine got shut down, and it's more TikTok now. Is pretty much, and it's all this short form content of that's
it's
all
people
just
want.
Like
like just because you know, as I say, it started with, you know, vinyls, and you'd listen to a whole album, and artists were so more album focused because albums were more bodies of work, and they were thought about as a collective of songs that fed into each other, and it was more of a, you know, it was a bigger thing. Whereas nowadays, albums are still, you know, prominent, and for big artists, obviously they still release albums, but starting out, it's so difficult to release an album now at an early stage.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it started as vinyls, and then it got to CDs, and then it got to, you know, you could then, like iPods, or I think Napster was the first place you could listen to music online. And then it just got smaller, and then Spotify, you could listen to music and whatever music you wanted. And then you had YouTube, which is you could, you know, watch videos, but they were short videos. And then you have TikTok or Instagram, which is that everything is just get short, and it's just going to get to the point where it's like 1 second videos and all this stuff. There probably is a social media where you can already do that.
Yeah.
But I think that has definitely influenced people's creativity and the type of music that people make, because as an bigger artist, you can afford to make an album because people will listen to it when you've already got a following around you. But trying to build up that following, it's really difficult. It's why more people, you know, like myself, do EPs or do singles, because you need to get people's attention really quickly. And stereotypically, you know, there's definitely still a market for albums. There always will be. But stereotypically, looking around, you know, the world, people just get bored or can move on to the next thing so quickly. Which is why, you know, people say, you know, people at labels say, you need to get to the chorus quickly. I remember someone saying that to me in radio once, you need to get to the chorus quicker. Even if it's not the right decision musically to do, is like, you need to get to the hook quicker because people will buy into it. Yeah. Which is really frustrating, and it's tough to make those decisions. I try not to do them too much because, you know, I as I say, I think you shouldn't make music based on what you think other people like. But that's the kind of the harsh reality of what TikTok and Instagram and YouTube has done to the music industry. Is it's influenced people's musical decisions because people can just move on to the next thing so quickly.
I completely agree. I think I speak to my parents a lot about their music taste, and my mum said that she the Eagles album that she had, she knew inside out because that's all they had. One time they drove to France and she had to just listen to this album on loop and learn it and like and everything like that. And then a recent story, I spoke to someone relatively recently, a few years ago, and at the time they were saying, they just said to me, "Oh, I'm Eminem's biggest fan." That was the thing, and I said, "Oh, so a big song at the time was The Hills, the Weeknd remix that Eminem did." So I said, "What do you think of the Eminem's take on The Hills then?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know that one." I was thinking, "Well, you're probably not Eminem's biggest fan if you don't know one of these big songs." But it's like you say, they probably think they're the biggest fan, but you're just probably a huge fan of an individual song or something like that, or individual bits and pieces. Whereas, like you say, back in the day, it was always albums. It was always the album is the work, isn't it? And then the singles are drawn from that. Whereas now it's probably the other way around of like, get the snappy bit first, make the song.
And people had so much more connection to music because they would go out and buy it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember talking to my granny about the Beatles when I was doing a project on the Beatles in school, and it was just so interesting hearing, you know, you'd save up money so you could go to the record shop and you could buy, you know, Abbey Road or the White Album or whatever, and you'd go and you'd listen to it all, and then you'd listen to it again and you'd learn all the songs. I mean, my dad used to talk about when he was learning the drums, he would, you know, listen to an album and then he'd learn to play all the songs on the album, and that's just kind of lost, and that connection to the albums and the art and the artists has kind of been lost a bit because people don't have that connection to the music because you know, we pay for Spotify. You don't pay for someone's album. You don't have that commitment to it. And as I say, that then influences artists because they're making decisions not based on a body of work. They're thinking, how can I, you know, keep people's attention and get it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So it definitely has had not a particularly positive effect on people's music, I don't think.
Yeah.
Other people might argue it. I think other people who have found their success on TikTok who would argue that you know, it's helped them, but I'm not sure it's had the best effect on music.
It's different for everyone, isn't it? It's I remember there's a singer I quite liked called Tom Baxter. I saw him did a song called Miracles that I think was a song for the London Olympics back in 2012 or something. But I saw him and he was he was in Stockton and he was doing this show, and he was saying as part of what he was like playing his songs and then talking to the crowd, and he was basically saying, like, he said, if you buy my album after the show, if you buy that album, that'll like cover all the money I would have made from Spotify for like the next year or something or whatever. And it's like, you know, he's just that. He said, I'm not kind of, you know, woe is me. And he said, I've had a great career from music, but I am saying that it's like it's a bit messed up the way that the streaming services are kind of taking some of the power away from the like, unless you're the global level artists that we've discussed, then a lot of these smaller artists do struggle from
well, no one makes money off streaming nowadays, and artists don't rely on it for their income, which is part of the reason why record labels come in and take so much of it. When you you know, your stereotypical major label deal, you'll be giving away 80% of your masters. You know, because artists, they rely on merch, they rely on touring to make their money, because there's no money in streaming. Like, I can't remember what the statistic is of how much one stream is. It's like 0.001p or something. Like, if you get 1 million streams, you'll get, I think, $4,000, which, you know, $4,000's nice, but it's not a salary. And 1 million streams, that's a lot of streams. So, you know, if you're in a really great position where you're getting hundreds of million streams, then great. But actually, you need to be doing, you know, to get the a UK average salary, you're looking at getting at least 1 million streams a month, let's say. Maybe a bit less than that, but you know, but that's a lot of streams, and you'll be doing well as an artist if you're getting 1 million streams on every song that you're putting out. So I think it's sad, really, that you know, we're in that scenario where there's not a lot of money to be made off streaming and selling the music. The money's made from touring and merch and brand partnerships and all this stuff. I know.
And there's an artist, Kate Nash, who with the Big Hit Foundations, and she's recently been in the news for saying that her concerts are actually costing her money. Like, she's losing money. She said it's all the merchandise that she sells on the tours. That's what it's like. That's what it's all about. And for her, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, you know, Foundations, millions and millions of streams for Foundations, and things like that. And I think if she can't make it work, what chance have the rest of us got? Or everyone else looking to try and make a career out of it.
Yeah, I know, it's tough, and I know a few artists around me who are doing really well and have got a buzz around them, but it's still really difficult to earn a living, because at an early stage, touring does cost a lot of money, and even if you're selling, you know, I know an artist quite well who's just did a sold out UK tour, but made no money from it, because she's, you know, it's getting to places, it's staying over at places, it's paying for the rest of the band, paying for meals and all this stuff, it's paying for the venues, and you're selling merch and all this stuff. I think she just about broke even, but breaking even, you can't make a living off that. So it is super tough. It's super tough, and the difficult thing is as fans, you know, fans want you to earn a living, and that's the tough thing, is and I think that's why merch is such a big thing, is because, you know, it's a way that fans can directly give to an artist to support them, you know, earn a living out of what they do. But we haven't really got any choice. You know, Spotify is what it is, and we can't change it. And that, I've said it before, is the same with TikTok, same with Instagram, all social media, is we can't change that. That's the way that the industry now exists, and it's easy to complain about it. but you've kind of just got to embrace it and find your own way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm still figuring it out. I think everyone's still figuring it out. But I do think it's sad that, you know, we've moved away from a world where the music is the most important thing. And people buy into the music.
Yeah.
They buy into so much more now. They buy into the person. They buy into the social media. They buy into, you know, all that stuff. Whereas you look back 30, 40 years ago, you know, one of my favourite artists, Prince, you know, Prince was an amazing personality, but what shone through was his musicianship, his songwriting, you know, an amazing performer, and that was the forefront of what he did. And I know if Prince was still around now, he'd be rolling his eyes at the idea of TikTok and social media and how much that's influenced the music industry. So
you wouldn't catch him on there, would you?
You wouldn't know. I'd be amazed if you did, but I guess we'll never know. But.
Yeah, Prince, that was another one with an amazing songwriting back catalogue. I think Prince wrote Manic Mondays for the Bangles, I think.
Yeah, he wrote all sorts. I mean, he wrote Sinead O'Connor's Nothing Compares to You. And actually, I remember hearing from a friend of mine that Kiss, one of his biggest songs, he was giving that away, and he heard the version that the other, I can't remember who did the version that was going to be released, but he was like, no, this is not what the song should be. And he was like, I'll show you what the song should be. And he did his version and then released, and it's become one of his biggest songs.
Wow.
But yeah, no, he's another great example of someone who, you know, just an amazing talent and could write amazing songs for other people and himself. And I don't think we'll ever see an artist like him. And a lot of those, you know, Billy Joel is another one of my favourite, the Beatles and Stevie Wonder, or you know, like James Brown. I mean, you know, you look at these giants of the industry back then, and I just feel like those kind of monumental breakthrough, you know, groundbreaking artists, we just don't get anymore. And I'm not for 1 second saying that I'm one, and I'm just, I just think it's interesting when you think about those giants of the music industry in the past, and it's just something that's been a bit lost now. And it's sad. It's sad. But we've got to make do and try and just keep going. And I think music always comes back round, and I think there will be a time when, you know, you look at someone like Billie Eilish, who I think in 30 years' time will still have that kind of appreciation and respect that she has now, and will be one of those artists that, you know, will be remembered in the way that, you know, Prince or you know, James Brown or the Beatles. Maybe not the Beatles. The Beatles is kind of standalone, but no, you get a lot less of those talents now. This is interesting, but
the way I could talk to you for hours about all those all those names you've named there, but I think we're about there again. We're about up. But for one last time, where's the best place for the people to find you?
Jack Critchlow on streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you consume music, and Jack_Critchlow on Instagram and TikTok. All those social medias we've just chatted shit about for the last 20 minutes. But yeah, I appreciate the follow, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.